Starting business from scratch is challenging, but how does it look like to run a family business that has been around for 100 years? In today's episode of the Montrepreneur Podcast, I sit down with Richard Borek. He's the fourth generation family business owner. We talk about the reality of running a legacy company that has been evolved over generations. Richard shares the challenges they faced, key moments that triggered the change in the business, and valuable advice for those who want to start their own. I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and I hope you do as well. Welcome to the Montrepreneur Podcast.
Richard, thanks a lot for taking the time. I really appreciate having you as a guest on the Montrepreneur Podcast. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you again.
Thanks a lot. Richard, when I hear your name, a lot of people in Germany might know that name, Richard Borek. I know that you are a fourth generation of a family business. You run this business since a very long time, but a lot of people might not know that name. So I would like to ask you, you don't only run this business, you hold also the name of your father, your grandfather, and your grandfather. So what comes to your mind when you hear this name, Richard Borek? Who is Richard Borek?
It's a complex situation because obviously, number one, it's my name, but in the same time, it's also inheritance and responsibility I have in running the business because there was a crazy Richard number one who had the idea to call his first son also Richard, who started this tradition, not only for the sake of names, but also from the sake of business perspective. And from that respect, of course, I not only have a great history from a story perspective, but also a kind of responsibility for the business I inherited.
Okay, nice. Can you go us through the business you're running? Because I know more or less that what kind of business you're running, but a lot of people might really be confused when they hear about this business model. The company is targeting stamps collectors and also people who buy gold and silver. What kind of business model is behind this company?
Well, we have a subscription-based business model, and we have been running it for more than 100 years. And it started with my great-grandfather in the area of stamps when he opened his small shop in 1893 and evolved over time, obviously giving always some setbacks with the First and Second World War. However, that was a stamp business, which still nowadays is called Richard Borek Stamps. And it's a nice and sound business, which still within Germany is able to create always some smile on some of our customers' faces and collectors' faces. And however, in the 70s, when the Olympic Games came to Germany, my grandfather and father had the vision to go to the next step and to launch its own coin business at that point of time. And at that point, it was more numismatic. So business where people, of course, at that point of time, a lot of cash in the society, and people were looking and hunting for certain products and coins. And that's when they started with MDM, which is the coin trading business in Germany. And since then it evolved and always having a special focus on this Olympics. But within the last, I would have to say 10, 15 years, we have also been developing much more into the precious metals. And in a nutshell, we offer collectibles, but also low-priced investment products to our customers on a pay-as-you-go concept. So the customers can stop anytime they want, and as long as they don't want, they receive monthly shipments, additions to their collections or investment plans.
Okay, and who are the target customers?
Well, it used to be mainly male 45 and older 20 years ago, and now I would say we are more or less 50-50, maybe a little bit younger, maybe 40 years and older. And we have been going through some dramatic changes in the way we communicate with our customers, and at the same time, the expectancy of transparency to what the customer is buying. I think we have adopted quite well. Can never be happy if you, but I think we could have done much worse. Our main sales channels is of course the online marketing, where we have a big focus on new name acquisition. So we anticipate to create new collectors. We create demand. It's not or new investors. We don't necessarily compare ourselves to big investment companies or numismatic small shops, but we more or less focus on first-time buyers and try to convince them, make them happy, and keep them as long-term customers within our product portfolio.
Mm-hmm. And when the customers buy like this precious metal product, is it kind of investment or is it kind of emotional buy because they love this like collection?
Well, we do have a wide variety of offerings. We do also have the no frills investment plan, which, however, I would say is only more or less 20% of our customer database and subscribers database. On the other hand, there are also the hybrid between collecting something which is something which you can identify with, but also have some kind of value attached to it. Because I mean, if you, for example, nowadays look into trading cards, they might be highly valued today, but it's paper. So maybe tomorrow, or let's say in 10 years' time, the boom is gone, and then you have a lot of paper at home with value zero. So that's the advantage of the collectibles investment scheme which we offer in the precious metal area, because there's always an intrinsic value which will always hold and has seen a great increase in value over the last 10 to 20 years especially.
Okay, interesting. But over the last 10 to 20 years, like a lot of changes have been happening, like also like in the e-commerce market, etc. And you're kind of e-commerce company, if I might say that. What's like the big difference like between your business, like especially like as the history of that, and a modern e-commerce online shop, for example, that sells some products?
I mean, in the end, there's no big difference. I mean, we adopted, and that we always had to evolve into new positionings. I mean, we started off as a real mail order business from the 80s, where we had mailings per post and big advertisements in newspapers. Nowadays there aren't any newspapers, and so we had to really develop and change our face to the customer and go through all the stages, maybe like a small startup within a bigger organization, and that always led us also to overcome challenges. I mean, on the one hand, you have KPIs you try to fulfill, given the history you have as a clear path forward. And on the other hand, you realize sometimes the KPIs are not working, but however, you only realize that after it didn't work. So it took us in certain areas some time to not only develop the business model from a marketing sales perspective, but also from a marketing controlling perspective, and to get to generate new knowledge in this given business model, and to be able to use them and apply it to scale the business.
Okay, interesting. And did the expectation of your customers also change with the time? For example, especially if they are like old target group?
Yeah, well, the overall reason to buy has shifted. When it was, let's say in the 80s, it was fully only coin collectors. Now we have at least 50% who have hybrid products. So it's a gold bar and coin collection. And of course, the expectancy of pricing, the expectancy of transparency, the expectancy on service has changed. And I always try to incorporate new knowledges from startups, from other digital businesses into our business to be closer to, in this case, for example, to our customers. We included a new Net Promoter Score, NPS, where we always try to get the feedback and try to include that into our continuous development. And at the moment, I think 2 weeks ago, we had our highest value with over 60, 60.4, which is our highest value, which we were quite happy with. So it's always important to try to get feedback as much as possible, and develop offerings from that. At the same time, of course, the best offering would be the product shouldn't cost anything and it should all be free. That obviously wouldn't work. So you have to incorporate these feedbacks into adoptions to your business model, which still give you the advantage of being able to grow. You need for growth not only customer lifetime value, but also marketing investments. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you hit the right spots at your customers, which make them happy and keep them on for a longer period of time.
This is actually a very interesting point, like having feedback from the customers, because usually it's like one of the biggest problems that startup will face, like not really knowing what the customer want or what the customer is going to pay for. But it's really interesting that even the offering for an established company has to be always also developed like based on that kind of feedback.
I think what I realized when I joined the company is that we had a bigger distance to the customers. Obviously, we had a sound business model. We were not unsuccessful, you would say, in Germany, but at the same time, we were also getting a critical feedback or supportive feedback for questions and changes. But the question was how to put it into changes on a wider scale and to understand which offerings do really have an impact. And by using the digital world nowadays, it's much easier where you have a continuous feedback loop, which allows you to target clearer and search deeper into the real reason what the customer is not making them really happy. So, I mean, for pricing, it can always be cheaper. I mean, ask the purchasers of iPhones, if you ask them what is wrong. I mean, it's a great product, but maybe it's a bit too expensive. On the other hand, for example, we have at the moment some feedback on delivery time. So what is the real reason behind it? Is it our product offerings? Is it our communication to the customer? And it allows you to target and focus on that and to reflect yourself and to make maybe sometimes even small changes which have a big effect to the customer.
Yeah, very interesting. I remember like on one of the events you hosted like a few years ago, you were mentioning, I am not a founder, I am a business like manager or a businessman. What's the biggest difference like between having a family business that's already running and starting from zero?
Starting from zero, that's what I said, is always the challenge of financing, not knowing whether it works or not. I mean, as I said, I never had this experience, whereas my cousins and other friends have gone through that loop. So I think I have a clear picture on that. On the other hand, you are free to do what you can do because you're looking from your idea, from your vision to your target group and are able to build something which is not rigid, but which is newly being built. So you have much more dynamics in the system to move forward. Whereas when you come into, let's call it a legacy system, a legacy company, of course, especially if it's successful, it's difficult to drive change. And the question is at what speed you want to drive change. Obviously, things have to change over time. But you have, again, then the company culture, you have employees who have been here for a long time, much longer than you have been. And you have to incorporate their things, their beliefs, their understanding, and not, and motivate them at the same time. And it's always, that I think I would have to say is a challenge when coming into an existing business, or especially family business, to incorporate the change at the same time. Although I have to say that we have been quite open and we developed certain initiatives to facilitate that even more. But in the hindsight, it could always be faster. And as long as you are not unsuccessful, mistakes don't hurt so much. And I think when you are in a startup, mistakes hurt deadly. Sometimes even don't lead to extinction of the startup. So, but that leads in these bigger organizations to some reluctancy to listen. And if I reflect to the last 5-10 years when I have been running the overall organization, I think if I had been a smaller company, we would have taken other decisions some time ago, because it would have been more obvious. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, how to get this sensitivity for money, for failure, for chances and opportunity, even on a bigger organization.
100%. I can totally imagine like this point, like the difference, as you said, like if you don't have like a big budget in a startup and you just notice like things are going down or the numbers are going down, that could be really deadly for you. But in a big business like that, you can just say, okay, it's, I don't know, like the business is running, and it could be like not an obvious feedback. But what are the biggest events like from the last, I don't know, like 10, 15 years that really triggered a change in your business? Because it's a traditional business that has to be changed, as you said, like with the time. Of course, you have to look like what employees are, the whole structure, like how could the change be triggered? But what were the biggest events that triggered like a bigger change in the business, digitalization or other stuff?
Well, obviously, the new media, let's 2012, 2015, when the shopping started, when the iPhone came out. I think that, I mean, there was a time before the iPhone, the time after the iPhone and iPad. I think that was a major shift, which gave it the internet a much wider audience. It seems so far away, but it's not that long ago. At that point of time, I think we are really a front runner and really fast in that area, and it gave us a lot of opportunity to grasp market share. Then we had some certain product offerings in Germany, which we were able to distribute on a high 6-digit number, which is also, I think, for a company our size still, for new name acquisition perspectives, generating 200,000 or 300,000 sales in a year per piece, not turnover, per piece. I think is something which doesn't happen too often. In 2016, 10 years ago almost. Of course, that already shifted the business towards online. And then, Corona gave it the print outlet a second birth, which was short-lived, but still we were able to capitalize on that. However, then we came into a heavy after Corona blues, I think, which looking back for the last 3 years gave us also the necessity, but also the opportunity to reflect on certain decisions we had taken, and giving this new position when you have been growing for so long and suddenly you don't see the numbers grow but fall. Really, it puts something onto the overall system. So there was a sense of urgency. It didn't need to be created, but at the same time, we were able to generate new offerings and new models to work against that trend, and which has been in the end been quite successful. But it takes time, and I think this is a family-run business. It's not a manager-run business. Of course, it makes it for oneself, because I do it for me and for the generations to come. It allows me to invest as much time as I feel necessary. It's more than a job, it's a hobby. And this is again where maybe, and I know certain managers are also the same, but it's the total buy-in. And I don't have a backup. This is my business. I don't get a golden parachute. It's all in. And that allows me also to, when you have developed your startup, and which is on a bigger scale, and you're not diluted too much from your shares, it's also the same ambition you have. And to get the team behind you to follow that new road, and to understand why they're not following, I think in the end it's a similar situation than to startups as well.
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting that you actually have this spirit like a founder. To be honest, like, you're one of the people that really inspired me to get into this field, like the startup entrepreneurship field. And from, I think, like 8 years ago, like I visited one of the startup weekends here, and from that point on, like, I cannot imagine like me not trying creating something like in that field, because it really changed like everything when you have this ownership feeling behind something. You just own this baby company, whatever it is, and you really wanted to succeed. Like, it's not just about doing your job and whatever. So thanks a lot. Back to the point you just mentioned, internet digitalization like put you in a much bigger market. That means like much more opportunity, but also like much more competition. Would you say like it was very challenging for a traditional business to go like that gap?
I think we were quite well adopted for the online market, for the let's call it the e-commerce time. We were able to. We may have been before the wave, so we were well ahead of time with the mobile and call it responsive web shops. we were just on time, maybe a little bit late, but what I see now, and there we are a little bit behind the curve, and we have to try to do our best to pick up, is that we are more or less now in the social influencer business model, which is totally differently set up, and where the advantages of an efficient shop are also there and persistent. But if you don't have any marketing distribution costs, you don't have to pay Google or Facebook, Meta, Instagram the money, but you invest it into your own brand and are able to capitalize on that because you have got your followership on YouTube or wherever, then this is, of course, is a totally different situation. And I don't want to call it an unfair advantage, but it is an incredible advantage. And in the end, it's an unfair advantage over the others. And there, indeed, there have been some changes in the market. And that's, I think, something which critically saying, I missed out on the Corona beat, because at that time we were trying to optimize the sales in the traditional channels, and we forgot about the new developing channels, which were prior to Corona not so relevant, but have really evolved since then. So it's always a question how the market is also changing, how to be relevant from what you talk about. And for this is, I think, the next big thing for this company or this group is that we have to be relevant and have a social kind of proven audience, not by paying media, but by saying what our customers want to hear, and develop strategies around that.
This is actually one of the biggest shifts I also struggled to understand at the beginning, but also in the last 2-3 years, I really understand the power of that. As I mentioned, you inspired a lot of people to go into this founder entrepreneurship startup scene, but you also got inspired from many startups as well. What was the biggest inspiration you learned from a founder?
The biggest inspiration I learned from a founder. Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, in the end, I think what I took and learned a lot is about listening to your customers, and that's why I try to incorporate heavily into our DNA, and to understand even at the beginning, what is the customer feedback, and keep that constantly going. And and maybe also to be, I mean, it's not maybe what I learned from them, but what I learned from them, but what we learned together is to never to start at a perfect spot. So when you have a budget of, let's say, 100, calculate maybe 2 failures, and don't invest 100 for your first shot, but invest 30 for your first shot. You have 2 options left to shoot when you go into the direction of how to use your liquidity when you went to a financing period. And never start with your perfect product, but start with the minimum viable product, or beforehand maybe just a landing page whether the people are interested, to see whether at least is any interest in what you're offering. If it's not, maybe you have to change the initial price. But these were all things maybe we learned together in the time when we started these startup camps and at the startup weekends. I think what I learned most from them is, and that is the biggest knowledge everybody should have, is that they should listen and be reflective. I think that's more about it. And they were all of them. I didn't know much about what they were coming from, their background, but they were still eager to listen. They were eager to grasp in new connections and exchanges and get feedback, and I think and reflect on that feedback and be critical about it. I think that's what I learned is the most important thing for anyone, not only a founder, but that's where I was pretty critical. It's the personal situation, how you present yourself and how you reflect about your steps forward, and use as much information and feedback as you can get to make sure you're in the right way, or to decide it's not left, it's right, and I know it's right, and
Yeah, 100%. And what are like the biggest characteristics you find like in a personality of a founder, or you say it has to be like in a personality of a founder to make it true?
Apart from being reflective, I think it's also to be very, you really want to win 100%. And if you want to start a business and at the same time, prioritize the party with your friends, the sports you do, and the girlfriend you have higher than your business idea, there might be someone else in the country who has a different priority. I'm not saying you cannot have a girlfriend, and I'm not saying you cannot do sports, and I'm not saying you cannot do party, but you should clearly know that when the time is right, you really have to put your business idea, your startup first. Because otherwise, if you're not prepared to put all in, and the only thing you have is the time you invest, especially at the beginning, then I think the chances are smaller than if you don't do it.
100%. And like a lot of people say it's risky. What if I fail? What if I lost all the money or whatever? What would you say like to the young people who want to start a business, but they are afraid?
Of course, it depends on what kind of business you want to start. And I've seen a wide range of different business concepts, business ideas, business opportunities. And before you start a business, I think there are earlier stages of development where you reflect and get feedback. And number one, I think if you want to start a business and you think you have a great strategy, some vision, innovative ideas, I think you shouldn't be by yourself. You should really be honest to yourself what your strengths are, and reflect on what the business you have been developing or planning to develop is in need of, and then try to find a business partner. Because if the two of you are perfect for what the knowledge you have to go forward for developing some software, developing an offering for 3 or 6 months without any financing, I mean, that's the cheapest way forward. And the more you can bootstrap, the more you can really stay on a low profile what expenditure is, the more value you create when you go into a financing round. So I think that is something you should consider when you start, because when you're a student, I mean, you're not always, people who start companies are necessarily students, or when you have a job, I mean, normally people work in a normal job, 37, 40 hours. Yeah, a week has 146 hours, I think. You sleep 6 hours per day, so it's 42 hours less. So I think there's still 80 hours you can work. If you really want to achieve something, there's always excuse not to, but there are many opportunities to go ahead where they want to watch Netflix or you work on your business plan. You want to, so number one is the full focus on what you want to do, and devote your time into that. Don't forget that you need sports, that you need friends around, but it's always a choice. And number two, try to avoid expensive investments at the beginning. Instead, look for partners, founding partners who are all in for your idea, and invest the weekends and the evening sessions if you have a job to get as much clarity on your product or your idea or your service you want to offer. And then look for boot camps or go for a pitch night. Just to get feedback from a bigger audience who's knowledgeable about this development. So that's why we started the Startup Weekend, for example, because you don't have to go there to pitch an idea you just made up, but you can go there with your developed business plan you have been working on for 6 months. And number one, try to convince this audience to be all in, or to get feedback if they don't really buy in, why they didn't accept the idea and what is wrong. So that would be my 3-4 takeaways for that.
Cool. But feedback is important, but not every feedback counts. There are feedbacks, like if I pitch an idea in front of an audience, I will get like 100 opinions. I will get as many opinions as I ask. But which kind of feedback really validates a business idea or not?
In the end, it's the potential client, obviously, that I think that that's the most valuable one. So if you plan to develop a new service, I mean, you can, of course, start with online marketing, offering your service and see whether they click on banners or not. And when they click on it, have a simple landing page available and say, there we are working on an offer and please sign up. It's an old school way, or drop your WhatsApp and we'll be back with you. I mean, on the one hand, so the potential customer feedback, I think, is something really important. On the other hand, once you are at this startup events, try to look for investors, and not on a financial business way, but more on a social way, and to grasp what they are looking for, because each business is different. One is this digital services, others are industrial startups, and so the developments, the setup costs are totally different. And I would strongly suggest, if you want to go that way, look for some experienced person who is kind of a mentor to you, be it not necessarily for money, but maybe even do that and try to include him as well, because at the moment your business is worth nothing. Yeah. So maybe give him something where if you all are happy, it works out. If not, you have a test for 6 or 12 months, then it's cancelled or something. But I think that would also be important. Try to find some mentor who had some experience and gives you also some guidance. So a customer on the one hand side, but also, because in one point of time, most of these startups need investment, try to reflect that already to this potential investor space.
100%. But talking about like investments and also like business models, because you look like many startups and also many business models. Some business models need more investment than others, and some business models like are more complex than others. What are the easiest like business models or the beginner-friendly business models, like anyone can try it without like losing big? Because this is one of the biggest fears I really hear a lot, especially from young people. Like, okay, I want to build this product, it's very, very, very complex, need that investment, and the failure probability is very, very high. But like, what other kind of businesses like you can start with without having that much capital or needing that much capital?
But it depends on this, always on the time we are in. At the moment, I think it's although the wave is already going down, it's about this topic of influencing, of course. So influencer is a very low cost entry business where you could develop certain information, target a certain target group. I don't know, maybe all deer hunters in the world. I don't know why, but it's a very small target group, and start building a community around that. So community building is a very low cost entry business model one could think about when you talk about international scalability. On the other hand, of course, and knowledge, of course, at the moment is all around about artificial intelligence, where people with relatively low IT know-how can still develop solutions. But of course, there the stickiness is not so high. I mean, if you see how many come and go, it's a fast development, and it's all highly engaged with the software as a service offering at the moment. Yeah. From that perspective,
yeah,
I think the easiest, lowest cost entry is being kind of influencer to certain topics, being expert, and to give advice or knowledge, or reflect about certain topics in reference to transparency, put them into context, try to exchange ideas, and be attentive and reflective with your followership, which would lead to more growth. And by doing that, build you a community. And once you have a community set up to a certain topic, you can then consider developing some kind of sales business model. So maybe go a 2 or 3 step approach.
It's actually a very easy and fast forward approach. Before I move into AI, because you just mentioned the digital products point, I just want to understand, like, why do you think that the trend is going down with the information-based business or community-based business?
No, it's not going down, but the growth is. I mean, there are so many influencers around already, and we now with AI we have chatbots, and maybe there soon will be artificial social following ships. So because from that perspective, they might even be more efficient, can generate more content, and thus give more reach again. And why should Meta or X then not do it themselves? I mean, they have done it in the past where they developed the, and Amazon also from a certain angle, they have done what was best, they did themselves. So if that works well, and we people follow AI generated streams as well as better or not worse than human generated ones, there could be a way forward. But still, I think that's for now, it's the easiest way forward. And allows it still is still a way to go, and it is I would say step 0.1 to 100. But if you realize that nobody has any interest in
a subject
that
or the
subject,
niche,
then maybe your overall business idea is not right. But at the same time, when you generate and start to a dialogue with this context, with these people, with these followers, you can then develop a product around their needs, and that allows you to be in contact with them.
It's actually a very smart way to flip it around, like instead of wasting all the money all the time, etc. Just do the research from the
customer perspective.
From the customer perspective. It's a very revolutionary tool that we have right now. AI, as we mentioned before, there are many events that really influenced traditional business, for example, or in industries in general. AI can have a lot of potential use cases, but I also hear a lot from experts that a lot of companies try to adapt AI just because it's trendy, just because it's the new technology. How helpful that really could be, for example, in your business or...
I mean, I don't... In the end, everything you do 3 times repetitive, at least 3 times, you should be doing by AI. So it will highly scale the skillful labor, because they are more efficient and have a higher output. This will allow to pay these people maybe even higher wages if they have higher output. If you just use AI for trend perspective, maybe this has been done 1 or 2 years ago, but I mean, we see so many use cases for where I see efficiency gains, be it where you have minutes of a meeting, where we do scribblings to product designs, where we do process automation, not talking about automated email answers. It's all, and also in the bookkeeping finance area, it's all there. And the advantage at the moment of younger companies is that they don't have a legacy IT system with mostly, I think, standardized interfaces, whereas older companies such as mine, where we have a more historic IT, there we do obviously have some obstacles to easily include this AI into seamless into our processes. So that's what the older generation of businesses have more as a challenge, but we still see all the opportunities, and given the necessity to grow and to invest more into our customers, it's the best to be more efficient in the internal processes.
If you compare it to digitalization, I noticed, for example, at the beginning, everyone was moving, digitalization. Then with that time, it went back, the trend. People were hiring less programmers and focusing more on sales, marketing, etc. Would you think it's the same, more or less, for
Well, the thing is that in the 2010s, we didn't have so much standardized software. In that time, for front-end developers and shops, of course, there were a few, but they were not that efficient, not that well maintained, and they were more difficult to set up. If you now don't want to make any advertisement, use Shopify. You know? So the world has shifted, and thus the front end, it's more a commodity nowadays. So having a great shop, everybody can have. It's not an advantage anymore. And I think that with the AI and for example, given the Shopify world and the standardized interfaces and the app model they have, also accounts for other products. I mean, AI is also commodity. So what is the advantage? And the advantage more lies again in marketing, product offerings, and let's call it personal brand, social CEO, to be able to be around your customers. And of course, that's why it shifted. And I think for medium-sized enterprises, and although we are not small, we are not big enough to develop our own AI, especially because you need to have the speed of the rest of the AI movement to be not falling behind. So it's really, I think AI is something which will still, in the years to come, give potential for dramatic changes and growth and potential, not only from efficiency, but also combining with robotics in all these areas will give an enormous boost.
Yeah, 100%.
Society.
Yeah. Okay. If you have to look back into, I don't know, like the 20 years, 25 years in your business expertise, what were the biggest lessons or biggest things that really stick to your mind? Biggest 2 or 3 things. It could be a story, it could be a lesson.
I mean, no matter, I would say no matter how sunny the summer is, you should anticipate that it might be rainy tomorrow, and consider what is how you prepare for that, and what KPIs you have. And if you don't find, if you have a guts feeling that something is not right, then most of the times you're right. And if you don't find the reason, you have to dig deeper and look for it until you find it, and don't stop with easy answers, because most of the times the underlying questions are more complex, and as long as you don't understand it, don't stop asking.
Richard Borek, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.